In the Shadows of the Void, Space Horror by Andrew John Kehoe. Chapter 1, Control. Captain Zala stood on the observation deck of the worn-down spaceship Endymion Hawk, gazing out at the desolate spaceport on the remote planet of Alfara 4. The air was thick with an unsettling tension, and the dim lights flickered sporadically, casting twisted shadows along the metallic walls. Zala, a seasoned explorer, tall, with lanky physique, recognized from his wide, curious, grayish-blue eyes. He wore his rugged features like armor, hardened by years spent navigating the unforgiving cosmos. Today, though, an uneasy knot twisted in his guts, fueled by whispers and rumors of the infamous anomaly A93. His ship and home, the Endymion Hawk, had seen better days. Its hull bore the scars of countless missions, scrapes and dents from asteroid fields, patches where wear and tear had been repaired but not quite erased. The control panel flickered with outdated systems, its screens displaying the weariness of years spent battling the void. Every surface inside the ship carried the scent of machinery mixed with sweat, lubricant, and the lingering echoes of previous adventures, triumphs, and failures. The crew had spent many nights huddled around a small galley table, sharing stories of the cosmos and the many scientific wonders they had encountered and discovered. The payday was contracted from Yakamura Corps, a formidable entity in deep space exploration, renowned for its enigmatic missions and relentless pursuit of the unknown, founded by visionary space entrepreneurs. The Yakamura Corps hires private ships and crews to investigate the countless anomalies scattered across the galaxy. Strange phenomena that defy explanation, hidden amongst the stars, with cutting-edge technology and the allure of lucrative contracts. Yakamura draws in the boldest captains and the most curious scientists, all willing to risk venturing into regions where space-time twists and ancient forces may slumber. Known for its secretive nature and whispers of classified discoveries, Yakamura Corps thrives on unlocking the mysteries of the cosmos, no matter how dangerous or otherworldly. "Have you heard the stories?" Adabu, the ship's engineer, asked, breaking Zala's reverie as she adjusted her tools, her brow arched in concern. "Ships disappearing without a trace. Whole crew's lost. They say the A93 is a one-way ticket." "Just rumors," Zala replied, dismissing her worries with a wave of his hand. "Every new anomaly brings tales of doom. We're explorers, not some shipwright scoundrels. We've probably faced worse." Yet even as he spoke, Zala could feel the uncertainty creeping in. "Sure, but this isn't just some cosmic storm," Adabu continued, her voice low. "Davinsky on the Resolve staff told me that there's one survivor and that he killed himself in front of the rescue crew shortly after being found in an escape pod after 23 days of drifting in space. The rescue crew that responded to the distress beacon said that his eyes were blackened in obsidian when he died and that he snapped his own frickin' neck. How fucked is that? Also, Davinsky said that they were the last crew to enter Anomaly A93 and never return. The ship is gone, no logs, no debris, just a fucking escape pod and this whacked out story." Zala locked eyes with her, the weight of her words sinking in. "Every mission carries risks, Adabu. We'll follow protocol and stay sharp. That's what we do. Plus, Davinsky's a fucking exaggerator, so don't believe a word that Shaka says." tried to sound confident, but the shadows of doubt lingered in the corners of his mind. Then Christensen, the ship's medic, burst into the room, her vibrant auburn hair bouncing with a fluidity and liveliness. "You two are still gossiping about that cursed anomaly?" she asked with a teasing grin. "Are we telling some ghost stories to go with our misery? If we're going to get spooked by all the rumors on the local spaceports, we might as well have a good time. I can prescribe something just to relieve your worries, guys. You're getting really fucking antsy." Zala arched an eyebrow, trying to suppress a smile despite the current moody aura enveloping them. "This isn't a game, Christensen. A93 isn't just another mission. There's a lot of money coming from those suits at the Yakamura Corporation, and we all know the Hawk needs a few new parts, or our next mission is definitely going to be planetside walking everywhere." "Oh, I know," she said, waving her hands dramatically. "But I like to think it is just like, I don't know, an adventure. Besides, what's the worst that can happen? We get trapped in another gravity well? Maybe we'll discover a new form of sentient mud. Who fucking knows? This could be our claim to fame, guys." "Just focus on the task at hand, Chris," Zala said, trying to maintain a semblance of authority. "We need to prepare for launch now, so all get to your stations." As they settled into their seats, Zala pushed aside the unease clawing at him. The crew had faced hardships before, but nothing compared to the chilling tales of Anomaly A93. The stories circulated in the hushed tones in the corridors of spaceports. Stories of ghost ships, whispers in the dark, and the crews that had lost their minds. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into something far darker than mere rumors. "Let's get moving," Zala commanded, his resolve hardening. "Engage the thrusters, Adabu." Chapter 2: Paralysis. With a nod, Adabu initiated the launch sequence. The Endymion Hawk groaned as it broke free from the gravitational pull of the planet, its engines roaring to life. The ship trembled slightly, a familiar sensation that reminded Zala of the many battles that they had fought together. The near misses and the narrow escapes, drifting back from his deep thoughts of times past, they were soon surrounded by the vast emptiness of space, the anomaly, a distant mass of darkness. Zala's heart sank as they approached the event horizon of A93, its darkness creeping towards them like the elongating, sinewy appendages of some unfathomable beast. "Into visual proximity of the anomaly," Dabu announced, her voice steadily despite the unease rippling through the ship. The Endymion Hawk lurched as they crossed the threshold, engulfed by a thick black fog and an obscured visibility. Outside the viewport, shadows flickered and disappeared, playing tricks on the crew's minds like smoke, slowly winding and dancing in an airless room. At first, the environment was eerily quiet. The usual sounds of the ship's engines were replaced by a deep, almost primordial silence that settled like a thick blanket. Zala exchanged glances with Dabu and Christensen, who both wore expressions of uncertainty. "This feels strange," Christensen muttered, her earlier bravado faltering. "Is it just me, or is the air feeling thicker?" Zala nodded, the hairs on the back of his neck standing up. "Stay alert, something isn't right here." As they ventured deeper deeper, the unsettling quiet morphed into something else, a low, thrumming vibration that seemed to resonate through the ship's very frame. Zala's heart pumped hard as he fought against the overwhelming urge to flee. The whispers intensified, wrapping around them like a suffocating shroud. They were no longer just sounds, they were tangible, invasive, filling the ship with a sense of dread. "Can you hear that?" Darbu asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's almost like whispering." "It's just the ship creaking," Zala said through his own heart pounded heavier. "Focus on your instruments." But even as he spoke, a soft murmur seeped into his mind, indistinct and seductive, beckoning him to listen closer. As the Endymion Hawk navigated the anomaly, the shadows began to coalesce into grotesque shapes, merging into nightmarish visions. A flicker of movement outside the viewport, something dark and amorphous shifting just beyond the reach of their instruments. "Did you see that?" Christiansen gasped, her eyes wide with terror. "Something fucking moved out there." "Calm down," Zala barked, gripping the controls. "It's just space debris, or maybe a trick of the light." Deep down, he felt anxiety rise. The tales of A93's consuming darkness loomed larger with every passing moment. Suddenly, the ship stuttered and shuddered violently, the lights flickering as if responding to an unforeseen force. Zala's heart raced as he fought his urges to turn the Hawk around and full speeded back to Corio Station 3, where the population was closest from this point. The whispers intensified, a collective cacophony of fear that seemed to seep into each of their minds. "Something's really wrong," Darbu shouted, her eyes darting around the cockpit. "We should all just get the fuck out of here." "Just focus," Zala commanded, desperation creeping into his voice. "We can't panic now. We just need to keep it together until we hit the center, and then we can run the scans, get paid, then we can get the fuck out of here." Just then, the cockpit door opens and 3 more crew members join them in the cockpit. Their expressions were ranging from anxious to excited. Lieutenant Takara, the ship's navigator, was always calm under pressure. With her short black hair and sharp features, she had quiet intensity that grounded the crew. Milo, the ship's botanist, was an exuberant young man with a penchant for finding trouble in the most unusual places. His curly hair and bright eyes brought a spark of energy, but he often seemed oblivious to danger. Lastly, Grigor, the ship's security chief, was a stocky and broad-shouldered, no-nonsense individual who thrived on discipline and order, typical of war veterans of the Titan resource wars of his past. His gruff demeanor often masked a deep-lying loyalty to his crew. "We picked up strange regions, Captain," Takara said, her voice tense. "It's like something's trying to communicate with us, but it's warped." "Warped how?" Zala asked, feeling the pit of dread in his stomach deepen. "Like, I don't know, I'm not sure. Like, it's blending together?" She replied, her brow furrowed in confusion. "I just can't make sense of it. It's almost like..." Suddenly, a jarring crash echoed through the ship, interrupting her. The lights flickered on and off, and on and off again, plunging them into darkness for a brief moment before the emergency lights illuminated dominated the cockpit. Chapter 3. Rejection. What in Jupiter's nutsack was that? Milo shouted, panic rising in his voice. We're going to die, aren't we? I wanted to see Earth again. My Tiffany. Shut up, Milo. Zala snapped. We can't afford to lose it right now. Calm the fuck down. Dabu shouted, her hands gripping at her console. We need to check the ship's integrity, not just yell at each other. The sensors indicate that the last contact, something has penetrated the hole in the cargo bay aft section. Let's check this before it gets bad, Takara suggested, glancing at the readouts flashing on her screen. We need to ensure that nothing is lost or damaged, but it seems that one of the nanosealant stacks has done its job and lodged itself into the breach and blocked the breach for now. Pressure is normalizing, but we need to check, secure, and reinforce. They all nodded in agreement, a silent understanding forming amongst them. Each crew member had their own reasons for exploring the depths of space, but their shared history had forged a bond stronger than mere duty. As they ventured together toward the aft cargo hold, the atmosphere thickened with a palpable tension. The whispers continued to weave through the air, melding into a haunting symphony that echoed off the metallic walls of the amphibian hawk. Zala led the way, his mind wandering with a mix of dread and anticipation. The corridor was dimly lit, the lights flickering as they approached the heavy hatch to the cargo hold. Zala felt ice race down his spine, a sense of foreboding washing over him like cold water. Memories of previous missions, both victories and defeats, flooded his mind, contrasting sharply with the strange, unusual sensation of vulnerability that now enveloped him. Let me take point, McGregor said, stepping forward with a firm resolve and an SAR-15 in his grip, his broad shoulders squared, ready to confront whatever lay beyond. The crew formed a tight formation behind him, the shared apprehension binding them together. As Gregor pressed the hatch control, the door hissed open, revealing the cargo hold cloaked in shadows. The flickering lights cast eerie shapes on the walls, and the heavy silence settled over them. Stay close, Zala instructed, scanning the rooms they stepped inside. Rows of cargo crates lined the walls and a flapping rubberized slapping of the sealant covering the hole where something had pierced the hull of the Endymion Hawk. But no debris or objects on the cargo hold's floor that they could see. Something felt very wrong to them. The air was warm, which made no sense to Zala, tinged with a scent that was vaguely familiar yet profoundly repulsive. Can you hear that? Odabu whispered, her voice barely audible over the low hum of the ship's systems. What? Zala asked, straining to listen. The whispers had taken on a sharp quality, distinct voices echoing from somewhere deep within the hold. They felt like a smoke fiber curling around his mind, enticing him to listen. It's like a chant, Dabu murmured, her brow raised in concentration. It's like a kind of hymn or some weird mantra. Can't you block it out and quit your whining and trying to think? Gregor snapped, his patience wearing thin. We have a job to do. It's not that simple, she retorted, her voice trembling. It's like the air is actually saturated with it all. Milo stepped closer to one of the crypts. Curiosity piqued despite the dread in the air. What if it's something from that blackness we saw on approach? Some form of life we've never encountered? His eyes sparkled with a fascination, but his voice wavered, betraying his anxiety. Before anyone could respond, the lights dim further, plunging the hold into near darkness. The whispering escalated, growing louder and more frantic, echoing through space like a haunting lullaby. The shadows seemed to ripple, contorting into grotesque shapes that lurked just beyond the edges of their vision. "Back away from the crates now!" Zal barked instinctively, stepping in front of Milo. He felt the weight of their fear pressing down on him, a tide of anxiety threatening to sweep them all away. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into a swirling mass, and Zal stopped and breathed heavily as he felt the oppressive weight of something ancient and powerful. "What the hell is that?" he gasped, his voice barely above a whisper. From the darkness, a horrific figure emerged, its form shifting and undulating as if it were woven from shadows themselves. It had no definitive shape, only a mass of tendrils and eyes, each one pulsating with glow, glancing hungrily at the crew. A nightmarish blend of organic and mechanical, its presence filled the room with a sickening sense of dread. "Run!" Gregor shouted, his instinct for survival kicking in. The crew scrambled back towards the hatch, their hearts racing with terror as the creature lunged forward, tendrils snapping like whips in the air. Zala barely managed to slam the hatch shut before the tendrils could reach them, the heavy door thudding against the frame. They huddled against the wall, panting heavily, fear coursing through their veins. Chapter 4: Abandonment. Gregor was suffering. Zala could see the man being haunted from the uncharacteristically fearful and confused look in his eyes. Gregor's eyes were usually wild. To a stranger, they would guess he was just on high alert. But no, he was melting down. Perhaps a dark repressed memory shaken awake during a traumatic horror. Gregor served in the corporate resource war of Titan, mankind's most brutal conflict with a 70% casualty rate, meaning not many veterans were alive today to tell of the horrors that you can now see on the History Archive's video decks. "What is that?" Christiansen gasped, her face pale as she tried to catch her breath. "I don't know, but it's not just a breeze. Stay sharp," replied Zala, struggling to remain and maintain his composure. "We need to seal off the hold and get the fuck away from here." "Are you serious?" Milo exclaimed, wide-eyed. "You want to leave it back there? What if it gets out?" "We don't have a fucking choice," Zala snapped, frustration and fear battling within him. "We're already on the brink, mate. We need to regroup and figure this out now." As they retreated into the control room, the whispers followed them, echoing through the corridors of the Endymion Hawk. The atmosphere had shifted into something malevolent, an oppressive force that clung to their skin and weighed heavily on their hearts. Once they were back in the control room, Zala quickly locked the hatch behind them and turned to the crew. "We need to discuss what we all just saw," he said. His voice was steady. "If we can understand it, maybe we can work out what the fuck is going on." "But how can we analyze that thing?" Udabu asked, her voice shaking. "We're not equipped to deal with whatever the fuck that was." "The readings from the anomaly should give us clues," Takara interjected, her eyes wide with determination. "If we can track this movements, we can maybe..." Before she could finish, the ship shuddered again, alarms blaring as the lights flickered once more. The whispers intensified, a crescendo of despair, enveloping them as if the very ship itself were protesting against their presence. Chapter 5. Rejection. Zala drifted in his own mind, untethered in a void that seemed to stretch beyond time, beyond even the concept of existence. The darkness around him was not an absence of light, but an entity unto itself, a vast and living abyss that pulsed with a stickly rhythm as though the void itself breathed. Shapes flickered at the edges of his perception, always receding when he tried to focus, yet whispering in the back of his mind that murmurs forming impossible words. He felt his mind pry open like a brittle shell, his thoughts spilling out and being devoured by a presence he could not see, but he knew was there, a cosmic predator whose existence was so vast, so ancient, that it dwarfed the universe itself. Faces emerged from the darkness, distorted reflections of himself, twisted in grotesque agony, eyes wide with knowledge of something beyond terror. His sense of self fractured. Each splinter became another consciousness, each one helplessly swallowed by the insidious tendrils of the thing that slivered into his core. He felt it sift through his memories, spray open his deepest fears, and unravel his soul thread by thread, not out of malice, no, but out of some cold, indifferent curiosity. There was no light, no end, only the knowledge that his nightmare had always been waiting for him, an eternal cycle of despair from which he could never awaken. The Captain Zala understood then that he was nothing, a fleeting thought in the dreaming mind of an ancient, indifferent god whose vastness consumed all hope. What is happening? Christiansen shouted, clutching the edge of her seat. I don't know, Zala replied, struggling to maintain control. The anomaly is reacting to us. It knows we're here somehow. Captain Zala tried to remotely restart the engine from the control room, an attempt to get away from anomaly A-93. But the ship was locked in place, gripped by whatever was outside in the cold void. He looked around to his crew. All were shocked from the moment. Nobody had experienced nothing like this. Nobody had ever imagined something like this. A panic surged through the crew. Zala felt a crushing despair settle in. He glanced at Gregor, staring blankly at the controls, the flicker of sanity fading from his eyes. Stay with us, Gregor, Zala urged, sensing the impending madness that threatened to consume his friend. But Gregor only shook his head, the spark of determination extinguished. It's too late. Already lost. Listen to hear the fight. I should have died on Titan a long time ago, he muttered, his voice hollow and deflated. What are you thinking, Gregor? Gregor? Gregor, no! What are you doing? Zala shouted, but it was too late. Gregor's eyes had glazed over, the grip of the anomaly seeming to wrap around his mind, pulling him into an abyss of despair. With a chilling scream, he lunged for the control panel, fingers grasping at the switches. The crew shouted in protest. Zala tried to dart across the control room to stop him, him, but it was futile. Gregor slammed his fist down onto the emergency release, triggering the cargo hold hatch to open once again. Gregor opened the control door and ran out, sealing behind him. Looking through the porthole on the door, Zala saw the horror unfold. The dark tendrils from the anomaly surged forward, coiling around Gregor as he ran into the void, his cries echoing in the ears of everybody, screaming as the crew just looked at each other in shock. "No!" Zala screamed, reaching for the door release, but something stopped him. The darkness swallowed Gregor whole, leaving only silence in its wake. The crew stood frozen, horror etched into every face. "What's he gonna do to him? Oh my God!" Odabu gasped, tears in her eyes. "We have to do something." "We just need to keep moving," Zala shouted, his voice breaking. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of torment that clawed at their sanity. What the fuck? What the fuck is going on? Gregor. Fucking Gregor, damn it! We can't take anyone else. Chapter 6. Shame. As they scrambled to secure the control room, the reality of their situation set in. They were trapped in a nightmare, an entity feeding on their fear and despair, picking them apart one by one, and now it is loose in the ship. Milo's laughter broke the tension, a frantic, nervous sound. "This is just a bad dream, right? Any moment now, we'll wake up and it'll just be another day in the void." His voice wavered, with a leer of humor cracking under the weight of reality. "Focus!" Zala barked, despair clawing at him still. "We need to work to find a way out of this anomaly. We need to stick together and just focus on a solution." Before they could process their next move, the ship jolted again, this time much more violently. The lights flickered out completely, plunging them into pure darkness. The whispers morphed into a maddening roar, enveloping them into a suffocating grip of terror. In the pitch black, Takara screamed the sound of primal fear. "Something's in here with us!" Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered on, illuminating a grotesque figure standing amidst the shadows near the control column. A malformed creature with sinewy limbs and twisted features, with eyes that seemed to weep darkness. It had taken on a humanoid form, but it was a warped reflection of madness. It had gripped Takara by the throat and ripped her head from her neck like a dog, and tossed her body and head to either side, blood splattering everywhere. Everyone frozen in shock or fear, or maybe a bastardized mix of the two. Zala's blood ran cold. "Run!" he shouted, opening the control room door, shoving Christensen and Odabu through and toward the cockpit. As he reached for Milo, Milo hesitated to respond, the madness flickering in his eyes. "Milo, come on," Zala urged, but Milo stood frozen, his face now a parody of himself. A mask born, a mask of madness. "Oh my God, it's beautiful," Milo everything we've ever dreamed of. Milo, what the fuck are you doing? Milo, no! Zala cried, but it was too late. The creature reached out with its elongated fingers or appendages, brushing against Milo's arm. A cheap scream erupted from his lips, echoing through the ship as the darkness enveloped him. Christiansen and Undabo fell forwards into the cockpit, Zala close behind, slamming the door shut behind him as fast as he could press the button. They huddled together, their breath quickening as they fought against the encroaching darkness. The whispers crescendoed, filling their minds with horrific visions of the lost crew members and warped creatures that had perished within the anomaly's grasp over the many centuries and millennia. Only 3 of us left, Dabu murmured, her voice trembling. What do we do now? We have to fight or die, Zala said, the resolve hardening in his chest despite the terror wrapping around them all. If that thing is feeding on our fear, we need to be strong and confront it head on. We can't let it have the last of us. We can't stay here. We need to get back and tell everyone in the population to stay the fuck away from this shit show. Zala moved to the console, hand shaking as he began typing furiously. We need to scan for any weaknesses, he said, his voice steadying despite the chaos around them all. If we can find a weak point in the anomaly's grip, maybe we can break free. Can we? Christiansen gasped, her voice laced with uncertainty. This place is fucking alive and it doesn't want us to leave. Look, remember the gravity well? We've definitely faced worse odds than this, Zala insisted, pushing down the rising panic. We always find a way, but only if we don't break. We've got this, guys. The 3 of them worked in a frantic rhythm, the quiet desperation of their situation fueling their actions as Zala scanned the control panel for navigational data. He felt the weight of their situation pressed down upon him. The remaining members of their crew were gone, devoured by madness and despair. He could not afford to let them befall the same fate as the others. The ship trembled again violently, the lights flickering ominously, the whispers intensifying, morphing into distinct tortured cries, the voices of their fallen comrades echoing in their ears. Zala clenched his fists, rage boiling within him. I've had enough of this shit, he shouted into the darkness, his voice booming against the roar of the anomaly. You can't have us. We are not your prey to have. The ship shuddered as if the anomaly responded to his defiance, the whispering turning into a cacophony of anguish. The creature materialized outside the viewport, its grotesque form twisting and contorting as it pushed against the hull of the amphibian hawk. It's coming for us, Christiansen cried, stepping back, her face pale, barely able to get a word from her lips. We have to get out of here. I'm trying to find a way, Zala snapped, the tension in his voice matching the frantic energy in the cockpit. Just hold on, guys. He punched a few more buttons on the console, desperate for any solution.